Hey, this is Mr. Ammerman, and today we're going to talk about the demographic transition model, one of the most significant models and thought processes in the AP Human Geo world. We want to see where we've been, where we're going, and it allows people who are in the latter parts of the transition to be able to help those in the early parts of the transition. So, as we take a look at this model here, we can see that we have two lines, the green line being the death rate and the red line being the birth rate. What we're going to explain to you in the next couple minutes is how we get from extremely high birth and death rates in stage 1 to extremely low birth and death rates in stage 4. So in stage 1, birth rates are extremely high, death rates are extremely high, actually the highest that they are in any civilization's history. And as a result of that, the natural increase rate, which is the crude birth rate minus the crude death rate, that is very unsteady because the birth rates and the death rates are so high and so unstable that it's extremely unsteady. Now, the reasons for the high birth rate, as you can see here, these societies in this particular model, they need kids to be laborers. They need kids to work on the farm. And because in this particular stage, there's not really good medical care or facilities, many children die very young. And so many times, if you have 8, 9, 10 kids, half of those children will die. And so families in need of labor wind up having more and more kids. Obviously, no family planning methods or techniques, no contraception that's available, and as a result, there's many kids being born. And actually, some religions encouraged people at this point to have more and more kids. Culturally speaking, some societies and cultures actually embraced large families and saw it as a symbol of virility and masculinity to have lots and lots of kids. Now, the reason in stage 1 that the death rates are extremely high, because of disease. As we said earlier, not a whole lot of medical attention. Famine, not a consistent supply of food. And because of that poor medical knowledge, people die. Simple things that we can treat today very easily caused people to die. And so as we look at that really wild looking picture there, the birth rates and the death rates, the green and the red lines, are very, very high. So now we move on to stage 2. In stage 2, the birth rate continues to be high for all the same reasons we talked about in stage 1. The death rate, though, begins to fall rapidly. And because the gap between birth rate and death rate explodes in size, that natural increase rate explodes in size. So, what are the reasons for the birth rate? The exact same reasons for stage 1. Children needed for labor, children die at early ages, no family planning, religious and societal pressure. But the death rate, now, we have some very basic improvements in medical care, indoor plumbing, that basic sanitation, access to clean water. That's extremely important. And as a result of better medical attention, cleaner water, better sanitation, fewer kids are dying. Fewer adults are dying. And so fewer people are dying. And guess what? That death rate goes down. And as you can see here, the green line being the death rate, that starts to plummet. And you see that gap between the red line and the green line? That causes the natural increase rate to explode in size. Stage 3 is when now not only is the death rate continuing to fall, but the birth rate begins to fall. And as a result, the natural increase rate hits its highest point and begins to also decline. Now, why is the birth rate beginning to decline? Well, now that we realize that we have better medical attention, we have a better diet, we don't need to have as many kids because fewer children are dying. And a lot of families are moving from the countryside to the cities. And they also then realize that they need fewer children. And so fewer kids are being born. Very primitive contraception is available, very primitive family planning. And people just try not to have as many kids as they had in the past. The death rate continues to climb because medicine, medical things get better and better. Even better access to water, better sanitation, the routines of what we now appreciate and take for granted, that improvement in infant mortality and child mortality allowed the death rate to really go down even further. Not as drastic as stage 2, but stage 3 continues to see that death rate plummet, as you can see there. As you can see, the green line starts to plateau a little bit at the end of stage 3, and the birth rate, gets really, really close to that death rate. So when we get to stage 4, that birth rate is continuing to fall. the death rate has a slight fall. And because of that, we have little to no natural increase rate. And we're aiming for what we call zero natural increase rate or zero population growth. That means there are as many people dying as are being born. And so we're not actually adding to our population. The people who are being born are actually replacing those who pass away. The reasons for the birth rate continuing to go down is family planning better than ever. You can actually, for the most part, if you really try, not have any children. The good health for children being born causes us not to have the large families. People are choosing to get married later, and so your reproductive window is smaller. And women feel empowered that they're not solely justified as a woman by their role in having children. They feel like they can have a career, that they can have no children and not be judged as a reason. And as a reason, because of that, some women have no children. Some women have one child. And as a result, that birth rate continues to go down and down and down. The greatest medical attention in the world, as we know, this is pretty much a present day modern country. Availability of food, people living longer, that causes that death rate to continue to go down and go down and go down. And as you can see here, in stage 4, the red line and the green line are intersecting because that birth rate and that death rate are actually just kind of kumbaya, one and one together forever. Best chums, like peanut butter and jelly. Stage 5, now, this is not totally confirmed, but this is in stage 5, that's when your birth rate actually starts to be less than your death rate. So you're actually having more people dying than are being born. And that natural increase rate is actually negative. So you have some countries in the world today that there are more people dying than are being born. A lot of European countries, especially Eastern European countries, Japan has this issue. The United States does not have this issue because we have such a rich and vibrant migrant population coming to the country. Again, great birth rate simply because why? Because we're choosing not to have children. And a lot of people believe that once we stop that, that could cause some countries issues. Death rate, again, continues to go down because, let's face it, life is good in a lot of modern countries. So you can actually see on this chart, and you can hit pause if you want to look at it even longer, that you have their stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and stage 5. Gives you examples here and the reasons for that. But the chart that I like most out of an old version of the Rubenstein text, I like this chart best because it shows you that in stage 1, you have the really high and really radical birth rates and death rates. And you can see at the bottom of that tan olive line, that is inconsistent natural increase rate. So, okay. Then we get to stage 2, and you can see the red line in stage 2. That's kind of pretty straight. The birth rate doesn't go down, but you see that death rate start to plummet because of all those things we mentioned in stage 2. And as a result, that olive line, that natural increase rate line, shoots up really, really high. That's the highest natural increase rate in a country's or civilization's history. Stage 3, you can see that the natural increase rate begins to plummet. That highest peak is at the beginning of stage 3. Once it hits that peak, it goes down. That natural increase rate goes down. And you notice the gap between the birth rate and the death rate. That begins to shrink and shrink and shrink. And it's no coincidence that the natural increase rate also goes down. When you get into stage 4, you see the birth rate and the death rate get together like peanut butter and jelly, as we mentioned earlier. And that natural increase rate get to 0, or actually, in some cases, below 0. So the natural increase rate, the demographic transition model, such a very valuable tool and one of the most important tools in human geography.